Folks, if you are somebody who is healing from relational trauma, we've already discussed that having bad days is simply part of the process. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. It doesn't mean that we've done something wrong. It doesn't mean that we aren't progressing in our healing. And it doesn't mean that we need to work any harder, okay? However, when we're going through difficult periods of time, it can be helpful to get curious about maybe what's happening with us, okay? And so I'm gonna name off some of the more common things that I see when I'm working with folks and they come in and they're reporting that they're having a difficult couple of days. All right, so number one, change in seasons. I mean, I'm especially thinking about this right now with the beautiful leaves and the leaves falling off the trees and the smells and just the shifts in daylight. And obviously I'm not just talking about fall, I'm talking about any season. If this was particularly difficult for us, if there was a season that was particularly difficult for us growing up, then that has the possibility of kind of setting off alarm bells in us and we're not even very aware of it, okay? Number two, and this is related, but anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, if these were things that were very difficult for us growing up, this can also send off alarm bells. Number three, physical exhaustion, okay? So we've talked about the reality that for many of us who are healing from relational trauma, we, for years, we're pretty disconnected from our physical bodies. And as we're healing, we're reconnecting with them, right? But it's not gonna always be perfect. And there's gonna be times when we kind of go back to being a bit disconnected and we're not even aware that we're so physically exhausted or that we're getting sick, folks. And sometimes this can just really set off difficult emotions, all right? So just being aware of that. Number four, if we are interacting with somebody on a pretty consistent basis that reminds us of that attachment figure that wasn't able to be consistently loving and nurturing, etc., that can definitely send off alarm bells in us, okay? And we may not even be aware of it. And, you know, there's a spectrum, right? So this can be mild in disturbance or it can be pretty severe in disturbing us. And if it's on the severe spectrum, we're looking at the possibility that maybe there's some kind of an attachment wound that is reopening. And I talked about this in a previous post as well. And I encourage folks to look at this because this can have pretty significant impacts on us. Definitely worth exploring in therapy, all right? Number five, and I think about folks who are on the dating apps, which I can't even imagine, but perceived rejections, okay? So whether that is a friend that doesn't respond back to a text message, or it's being on the dating apps and all of a sudden we're ghosted for no reason, which I hear so commonly from folks. Or if we find out we weren't invited to something that other people were invited to, okay? Or if we ask somebody to do something and they say no. There's a long list here, but a perceived rejection can absolutely kind of set off alarm bells in us. The last thing I'm going to note for us to consider is sometimes folks, the inner child who we've talked so much about, we've done such an amazing job about creating a safe, nurturing environment for that inner child, that inner child now feels safe. If there's a layer of deep sadness that needs to come out, remember folks, you know, there's years of sadness and anger and grief that this kiddo is needing to come out. And this is going to happen for a while, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. But sometimes that inner child, there's just a ripe opportunity for another layer of this pain to be released. And what happens is we will feel that sadness, okay? And so these are just kind of the things that we need to consider. These are, and we can add 1,000 things to this list. But again, these are just the more common issues that I make sure that I'm kind of mentally checking in on with folks if they're reporting having a difficult day or a difficult period of days. The most important thing to remember are those things that I mentioned in the beginning. Having a bad day doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Having a bad day does not mean that you're not progressing in your healing, okay? And the fact that you're feeling it, that is a sign that you are healing, and that you're talking about it and that you're naming it, all right? And we don't need to pathologize this. That's the most important thing. This is just part of the process. And every time we go through periods of time like this, we learn more about ourselves. It's another opportunity to nurture ourselves, to apply self-compassion, to attend to that inner child. Thank you for being willing to come on here and to grow and learn.